Hi, phono friends. Don Wilson here. Another exciting episode of As the Record Turns. And I'm very excited to bring another little piece of the puzzle together to try to help some of you make your own records at home. It is one of my main goals when I started this project 3 years ago, was to try to help people, to bring them technology to be able to copy their own records at home. That way these super rare records that we all come across, that we can make copies for each other, and that we can share something that before would only be available to people with deep pockets or significant luck. So in the past, I've posted videos about how one can make their own silicone mold for a record. This one here, you might be able to see where it says advanced information, and maybe you can tell by the size that this is in fact one of the 1930s Durium Chevy ads. I'm using this one because it's particularly small, so it'll be easier for this video, and it's electrically recorded, so the fidelity's decent. Using a Berliner or such, it wouldn't reflect so well. So the previous videos, as I mentioned, showed you how to make the molds. There's three, I believe, three different videos that I've made. The newer ones obviously being better. I worked out a couple iterations for you to try to make it as easy as possible. But what I'm bringing you today is a bit of a surprise resin that I found that works quite well for making copies without any specialized equipment. Most of you probably don't want to make the huge investment of money and space that it takes to set up a pressure casting operation. Vacuum degassing and vacuum chambers, high-powered vacuum pumps, giant air compressors, and that sort of thing. So the nice thing about this particular resin, Smooth on Task 6, is that it seems to work just fine being mixed up in some plain old cup and then just poured into the mold. It degasses itself so well that the record has quite good fidelity. The other upside is that this resin is very inexpensive. It's one of the most inexpensive resins that Smooth On sells. Unfortunately, it's incredibly brittle. It doesn't take pigment particularly well either, but hey, you win some, you lose some. So I'm going to give a demonstration of how you can make one at home. So you can follow my directions previously about how to make your own mold. And then I'm going to try to measure out about 100 grams. I think that will be more than enough. This resin can be used 50-50, part A and part B, by either weight or volume, so you don't need a scale. I have one, so I always like to use it when possible, but you can also use a measuring cup or something like that. So there we have 49 grams. This is part A. Now it's always important to take a look at the pot life. The pot life means after part A and part B touch each other, how long do we have? And in this case we have 7 minutes. 7 minutes is not much time, especially when one has to do vacuum degassing and such. I'm going to tear the scale. And then I'm going to try to get this one as close as possible to 49 as well. 48, 49, look at that. Right on the money. If I can't get this cap on in 30 seconds, it'll just have to wait. Ooh, got it. So for mixing, for these little tiny batches, I like to use a chopstick. These guys also come in handy. Typical mixer. But we don't have much time, so we better get moving. That you probably can't tell, but you can see that there's basically two different oils. The part A and part B are quite different in both color and viscosity. So we're going to mix them together, and I'm going to try to mix them together along the wall of the container. And I'm going to try to not stir in too much air. You can look and see the air bubbles, and if you whip it real good, then you'll see more air floating around inside the liquid. This resin also starts to warm. The fast-setting resins, you can tell when they're getting ready to go because they'll actually get warmer and warmer and warmer as time goes on. Very important to scrape the sides a few times to make sure that material gets mixed in. We're done with the chopstick, so I'll wipe him off and set him aside. We can also turn off the scale now. Okay, so now that it's been mixed, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the cup slowly. You'll notice that this cup is quite large for the volume of liquid that I placed in it. But I'm doing this to try to get all the air bubbles in here to break. It's a worthy goal, but usually doesn't work out quite right. So now this workbench, I know that it is dead on level. Well, you know, it was dead on level, but got some little spots, but it's close enough. Now, the second part of this is we're going to hold it up, maybe a foot off the mold, and pour in a wide, thin stream. And that wide, thin stream is going to help to break the air bubbles that are still in it. You might be able to see that there's still quite a few. But we're going to pour in a wide, thin stream. And we're going to try to keep a consistent stream. We don't want dripping because that'll help get air in. And gonna move it along because we don't have a lot of time. I always like to pour right on the spindle nub. Just a personal preference. I think that it's my opinion that pouring on the groove wall, directly onto the grooves, would aid in air entrapment, but I don't have anything to back that up. Okay, so we're done with this cup. Set him aside. Now we only have a very short period of time until this resin starts to set up. So I should have picked something other than the scale. So I'm going to take, this is just a little piece of foam, just something random that I grabbed. Going to slide this guy over. And we're going to do what we can to try to get that air out. This is, of course, stirring up dust, but I'm optimistic that that dust will only lay on the top. Now, this whole process, making records using silicone molds and then casting them in polyurethane, the whole process is about air management. I mean, if you could do it in the vacuum of outer space, it would be a piece of cake. But all this atmospheric air, it likes to get trapped in those tiny little grooves. Like, you couldn't do this process with a diamond disc. It'll work with a 78, but with a diamond disc, the grooves are just, you know, that little bit more, or that little bit smaller. The materials won't handle it. Great. So, this does look a little lopsided, so I'm going to tilt it a little bit to try to get the resin relatively level in the mold. I don't know that the mold is completely level itself. This was a quick and dirty mold that I made just for fun. I like to use things like that for business cards. Great. So this mold is set. This is going to take, the box says, or the buckets say 75 minutes to complete cure. So I'm going to turn the camera off, and in just a moment, we'll demold it, drill the spindle hole, and give a test play. Okay, it's been, I don't know, I think 2 hours or something like that. And you can see, color's quite a bit different. It's fairly solid, nice and tappy. And now we're going to just peel it out. Some minor air bubbles around the edges, but looking at the grooves, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to drill the hole for the spindle hole, and in a moment we'll give it a test play.
In a few days, the Chevrolet Motor Company will announce a great new car. We believe it is unquestionably the finest motor car this company has ever designed or built. Chevrolet's success has been due largely to the loyalty of its owners. Therefore, we are giving you this advance information so that you can arrange to be one of the first to experience the thrills of driving this new car. And when we say thrills, we mean just that. You will get the thrill of a smooth 60-horsepower six-cylinder engine with a speed of 65 to 70 miles per hour. The thrill of driving the first and only low-priced car with both simplified freewheeling and the silent shift synchromesh transmission. You will get the thrill of ultra-modern styling in smart new bodies by Fisher. And finally, the thrill of Chevrolet's greater comfort, durability, and economy at prices among the lowest at which motor cars are sold. So take advantage of this advance information to Chevrolet owners. And whether or not you intend to buy, arrange to drive this new car yourself and learn firsthand why Chevrolet is truly the great American value for 1932.
Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe learned something, and hopefully some of you feel a little inspired to try to copy some of your records. It'd be wonderful to see more people doing it. And these materials, they're readily available. They're fairly inexpensive to copy 1 or 2 records. So hopefully some of you will give it a try. If you do try and you have any problems with it, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to do what I can to help people troubleshoot. You can send me an email, doninphilly@gmail.com. Good luck, and see you online.